Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a phenomenon we've all experienced the moment you stop caring about someone's negative energy, manipulation, or validation-seeking behavior and how it sends their ego into a tailspin. Let me tell you, there's real power in letting go, and that power lies within you. The power of detachment. There's an old saying, what you resist persists. When you're constantly trying to win someone's approval, explain yourself, or defend your worth, you're pouring energy into their control over you. But when you detach, when you stop engaging in their game, you take back that energy. You stop being a player in their drama. And without your participation, the show can't go on. This isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about stepping into a higher level of emotional intelligence. It's about realizing that you don't have to chase, convince, or fight for space in someone else's mind. Your value is innate, and when you understand this, you become unshakable. The ego's need for validation. Here's the truth about ego-driven people. They crave control, admiration, and your emotional energy. Their ego feeds off your reactions, whether positive or negative. When you give them your anger, your fear, or even your approval, you're feeding their need for significance. But what happens when you stop? When you respond with calm indifference? Their ego doesn't know how to handle it. It's like a fire with no fuel. It sputters, it weakens, and eventually it burns out. Self-worth vs. external validation. Here's the heart of the matter. You've got to know who you are without needing someone else to confirm it for you. When your self-worth comes from within, you become immune to manipulation. You see, people who seek to control you often rely on your need for their approval. They create dependency by making you feel like you need them to feel whole. But when you know your worth, when you're grounded in your own values and vision, nothing they say or do can shake you. Emotional energy is currency. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you have. Think of it as a currency. Every time you engage with negativity, every time you react to someone's ego, you're spending that currency. The question is, are you investing it in something that brings you peace, growth, and joy? Or are you wasting it on drama and toxic dynamics? When you learn to hold your emotional energy close, when you choose where and how to spend it, you become the one in control. And trust me, that drives the ego-driven crazy. The ripple effect of indifference. Here's the beautiful thing about detachment. It's not just about protecting your peace, it forces others to reflect. When you stop engaging with their antics, they're left with their own thoughts. They're forced to confront their behavior, their insecurities, their ego. It's not your job to fix them, but your indifference can be a mirror. And that reflection, it's often the most unsettling thing for someone who thrives on external validation. How to care less and thrive more. So how do you master this art of detachment? Here are 3 steps. Build inner confidence, spend time discovering your values, passions, and purpose. When you're rooted in these, external opinions lose their power. Practice mindful responses before reacting to someone's behavior. Pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, it's not. Focus on your growth, channel your time and energy into what makes you better, happier, and more fulfilled. When you're busy building your life, you have no time for unnecessary drama. The conclusion. When you stop caring, when you detach from the need to please, prove, or participate in someone else's game, you reclaim your power. And yes, it might drive them mad, but here's the secret: their reaction is not your problem. Your job is to guard your peace, nurture your growth, and walk boldly in your truth. Because when you do that, you don't just survive, you thrive. Thank you. Let's step into our power together. When you start to understand the profound impact of detachment, you begin to realize how much energy you've been wasting by holding on to unnecessary attachments. Let's be clear, detachment does not mean becoming cold, unfeeling, or indifferent to the world around you. It means taking a conscious step back and choosing not to allow external forces to govern your emotions, thoughts, and actions. The act of detaching is, in fact, an act of deep self-awareness and inner strength. Often we invest so much of our mental and emotional energy in others, whether it's seeking their approval, trying to meet their expectations, or simply engaging in their drama. This is a natural instinct. We are social beings, and connection is important. But when that connection turns into an unhealthy dependency on others' opinions or behaviors, it can drain us. It's like pouring water into a bucket with holes. The more energy you give, the more it leaks out, and eventually you're left feeling empty, frustrated, and unfulfilled. The key to understanding the power of detachment lies in recognizing that attachment to others' reactions only weakens you. When you care too much about how others perceive you or react to your actions, you lose your freedom. Your thoughts and emotions become anchored in their responses, not in your true desires or values. It's like being a puppet to their strings. But when you let go of that attachment, when you choose to stop seeking validation from others, you free yourself to live authentically and in alignment with your own values. Think about the times in your life when you were the most frustrated, hurt, or confused. Often it's because you allowed someone else's actions, words, or opinions to define your sense of self. You might have tried to please them, make them happy, or gain their approval, only to find yourself emotionally drained and confused about what you really want or need. This is the danger of being attached to others' perceptions. It's like chasing after something that's constantly moving just out of reach. You run, you strive, but the moment you feel like you've grabbed it, it slips through your fingers again. Now imagine what it would feel like to stop that chase altogether. Imagine a life where your peace, your happiness, and your self-worth are not contingent upon someone else's approval. When you stop caring about other people's opinions, you stop giving away your power. You stop letting their words, behaviors, or judgments control your emotional state. And here's the incredible part: when you detach from their need to control, you begin to reclaim your own power. This is where true freedom begins, when you're no longer shackled by the chains of validation-seeking behavior. Detachment doesn't mean you abandon relationships or stop caring about the people you love. Far from it. It means that you no longer base your worth on their ability to meet your emotional needs. You learn to stand in your own strength and find your validation within yourself. This is a subtle but profound shift in mindset. Instead of reacting to someone else's actions, you respond based on your own inner compass, your own truth. The power of detachment also comes in its ability to help you create boundaries. When you are no longer attached to someone's approval or disapproval, you can clearly define what is acceptable in your relationships. You can choose to engage in ways that honor your values and protect your peace. You learn to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you or draw you into their emotional drama, and instead of falling into that trap, you step back. You don't need to engage, and in fact, the best thing you can do is to not engage at all. This is the strength of detachment. When you practice detachment, you cultivate emotional intelligence. You begin to observe the patterns of your own mind. The reactions that arise when someone criticizes you or when someone does something to upset you. Instead of automatically reacting, you learn to pause and choose your response. This pause is the moment of power, the moment where you decide that you will no longer be at the mercy of someone else's ego. You become the master of your emotions, and with that mastery comes a sense of inner peace that cannot be disturbed by external factors. In essence, detachment is not about being indifferent, it's about being deeply connected to yourself and your own purpose. When you stop caring about trying to meet others' expectations, you allow yourself to pursue your own path with clarity and confidence. This is where real personal growth happens, when you no longer need someone else's approval to feel good about yourself. When you release that need, you open up space to discover who you truly are and what you're truly capable of. The ego thrives on one thing: validation. It craves recognition, admiration, and acknowledgement from others as it draws its sense of identity from external sources. When you look closely, you'll realize that much of the emotional drama in your life is driven by other people's egos, and often by your own ego as well. The problem arises when we allow someone else's ego to dictate how we feel, react, or behave. Their need for validation can become a constant source of friction in our lives. This is where the power of detachment comes in. When you stop feeding into their ego, something incredible happens. Their need for validation is left unfulfilled, and the ego is forced to confront itself. One of the most striking aspects of the ego is how it manipulates us. It doesn't just seek validation in a gentle or subtle way. It often demands it through criticism, control, or emotional tactics. People with inflated egos are experts at pulling you into their drama, creating scenarios where your reactions are their source of emotional nourishment. They want you to argue, defend yourself, or even agree with them. This validates their sense of importance and bolsters their fragile self-image. The more you react to their provocations, the more their ego grows stronger, feeding off your energy. It's a vicious cycle that becomes difficult to break unless you make a conscious decision to stop playing along. When you detach, you stop responding to the ego-driven behavior of others. You stop giving them the emotional energy they crave. You cease participating in the mental and emotional games they play. This action, although subtle, is incredibly powerful because it cuts off the very thing that sustains their inflated sense of self. Imagine being in a conversation with someone who is clearly trying to provoke you or make you feel inferior. Normally, you might feel compelled to defend yourself, to justify your actions, or to prove that you are worthy of respect. But when you choose not to react, when you simply observe without getting emotionally entangled, something shifts. The person on the other side, with their ego in full force, begins to lose the grip they once had on your emotions. What's fascinating is that when you stop giving their ego the validation it craves, they often react in ways that are unexpected. Their ego doesn't understand why you're not engaging. It becomes disoriented. The tactics that once worked to control or manipulate your behavior suddenly lose their power. The very foundation of their ego's control your emotional responses crumbles. This leaves them feeling unsettled and, in many cases, angry or confused. They may even escalate their behavior, but this is all a reflection of their internal struggle, not yours. By detaching from their need for validation, you disarm them in a way that goes beyond any argument or confrontation. Their ego has no fuel to feed on, and they're left with the raw, uncomfortable truth their self-worth is entirely dependent on how others respond to them. And when you refuse to engage, it exposes the fragility of that ego. This doesn't mean that they will immediately change or become more self-aware. In fact, they may try to manipulate or provoke you even more. But the longer you maintain your detachment, the less power they have over your emotional state. Eventually, they may even realize that their tactics no longer work, and that realization can be a wake-up call both for them and for you. One of the most liberating aspects of this process is that you no longer have to participate in the ego-driven drama that surrounds you. The need to defend, explain, or justify your actions disappears. Instead of reacting to someone else's ego, you respond with clarity and calmness, rooted in your own sense of self. When you stop reacting, you stop perpetuating the power struggle. The ego thrives on conflict, on making others feel small or insecure in order to feel superior. But when you choose to let go of that struggle and simply remain centered in your own truth, you take away their power. Over time, this practice of detaching from others' egos and not feeding into their need for validation will free you in ways you can't fully anticipate. You'll find that your emotional state becomes less dependent on external forces. You'll experience greater peace and stability because your validation comes from within, not from the approval or acknowledgement of others. And as you continue to grow in this practice, you'll find that the people who once tried to control your emotions through their egos will no longer have the same impact. In fact, their behavior may even seem irrelevant to you because you've learned to prioritize your own emotional well-being over the fluctuating whims of their egos. The need for external validation is one of the most common pitfalls we face in our journey towards self-discovery and personal growth. We are conditioned, in many ways, to seek approval from others, whether it's from our family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers. This can manifest in many forms: the need for praise for our achievements, the desire for recognition of our worth, or the craving for acknowledgement of our presence. However, the key to true emotional freedom and fulfillment lies in recognizing that your sense of self-worth should never depend on anyone else's opinion or judgment. When you can build your self-worth internally, you become invincible. You no longer rely on external sources to define who you are. This is the cornerstone of personal empowerment. When your self-worth is rooted in your own values and beliefs, it becomes unshakable. No one can take it away because it's built on a foundation that is entirely within your control. Unfortunately, for many of us, we have learned to define ourselves based on the expectations of others. We feel validated when we meet certain milestones or conform to the ideals that others hold dear. This might look like seeking a promotion, adhering to societal beauty standards, or aligning with the opinions of our peer group. But as satisfying as these external sources of validation can be, they are fleeting. They are fleeting. They are subject to the opinions, whims, and preferences of others, which are constantly changing. When you base your sense of self on these shifting and unpredictable factors, you create an emotional roller coaster that you can never truly control. The truth is that relying on external validation to affirm your worth only creates a false sense of security. You might feel good when others acknowledge your accomplishments, but this high is temporary. The moment the validation disappears or is no longer forthcoming, you are left feeling empty, insecure, and unsure of yourself. This is why people who seek constant external validation often experience such intense emotional highs and lows. Their sense of self is tethered to a moving target, and the moment they miss the target, they lose their sense of value. On the other hand, when you cultivate a strong internal sense of self-worth, you are no longer at the mercy of others' judgments. You can accept compliments graciously, but you don't rely on them to feel good about yourself. You can take constructive criticism, but it doesn't define your value or your potential. Your identity becomes rooted in something much deeper and more resilient, your own beliefs about who you are and what you stand for. This doesn't mean you disregard others entirely. You can still listen to feedback, you can still grow and learn, but you do so from a place of confidence and clarity, knowing that your self-worth is not at stake with every comment or opinion. One of the most powerful things you can do to reinforce this internal sense of worth is to focus on your personal growth. When you dedicate time and energy to improving yourself, not because you're trying to prove something to others, but because you want to be the best version of yourself, you begin to build an unshakable foundation of self-love. This foundation doesn't rely on anyone else's approval because it comes from a deep understanding of who you are and what you bring to the world. Your self-worth becomes tied to your actions, your values, and your progress, not to how others perceive you or respond to you. In practice, this means embracing your strengths and your flaws with equal acceptance. You don't need to be perfect to feel worthy. Instead, you recognize that your worth comes from your unique journey, your individual experiences, and your ability to grow and evolve. You stop comparing yourself to others and stop trying to meet unrealistic standards. You start to see yourself as complete and valuable just as you are, knowing that you can always improve and continue to develop, but that this growth is a personal process, not something driven by external expectations. This shift in mindset has a profound effect on your interactions with others. When you are no longer seeking validation from the people around you, you become free to form genuine connections. You are no longer engaging in relationships to get something from others or to fulfill a need for validation. Instead, you engage authentically because you have enough self-love and self-respect to show up as your true self. This creates more meaningful, honest relationships because you no longer need others to complete you. You already feel complete and you can share your love and support freely. By focusing on building your internal sense of worth, you stop giving others the power to define you. You begin to set healthier boundaries, protect your peace, and avoid being drawn into unhealthy dynamics where your value is constantly questioned. Your emotional state becomes less dependent on others' actions, and you start to realize that you are in control of how you feel, regardless of external circumstances. This inner strength allows you to pursue your goals with greater clarity and confidence, knowing that your worth is not tied to the outcome. Success or failure doesn't alter your sense of self, it's simply part of the journey. When you stop seeking validation, you start to live authentically. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's standards, and you can begin to make decisions based on your truth, not based on the approval of others. This is where true freedom lies, in knowing who you are and standing firm in that knowledge without needing anyone else to confirm it for you. Emotional energy is one of the most valuable forms of currency you have, yet it is often overlooked or taken for granted. Every time you react to someone or something, you are expending emotional energy. The question is, are you spending that energy wisely? When you choose to invest your emotional energy into situations, people, or dynamics that don't serve your well-being or growth, you are essentially draining your reserves. However, when you are intentional about where you direct your emotional energy, you take control of your experience and, more importantly, your peace of mind. Think about how often you allow your emotions to be controlled by the actions or words of others. When someone insults you or tries to provoke you, how much energy do you expend in response? Often we react immediately, either with anger, defensiveness, frustration, or self-doubt. In doing so, we give that person or situation control over our emotions. What happens then is that the other party becomes the keeper of our emotional state. They dictate how we feel, and we lose our power to determine how we respond. This is the moment where we trade our emotional energy for something that doesn't benefit us, perhaps a fleeting sense of being right, an illusion of control, or a temporary relief from discomfort. This is why it's essential to recognize the true value of your emotional energy. It's a finite resource. Once spent, it cannot be recaptured in the same moment, and it can take time to restore. So ask yourself, where is your emotional energy going? Are you directing it toward people who drain you, situations that frustrate you, or conflicts that only serve to escalate your anxiety? Or are you channeling that energy into your growth, your peace of mind, and your own sense of fulfillment? When you choose to stop engaging with negativity, when you stop giving others the power to determine your emotional state, you stop wasting your precious energy. This is the first step in reclaiming your emotional freedom. Instead of reacting automatically to someone's behavior, you start to respond with intention. You decide whether or not to engage, and if you do so from a place of power, not desperation or reaction. This shift in mindset doesn't just protect your peace, it also reinforces your personal boundaries. You no longer allow toxic people, drama, or unnecessary conflict to siphon off your energy. Your emotional resources are too valuable to waste on things that don't contribute to your growth, happiness, or well-being. It's important to note that emotional energy doesn't just go toward others, it also gets spent on our internal dialogue. How often do you ruminate on something that upset you? How often do you replay a situation in your mind, analyzing every detail, trying to figure out how you could have responded differently or how you could have avoided the discomfort? Each time you revisit a negative experience in your mind, you're spending emotional energy. You're re-engaging with the pain, frustration, or anxiety, even though the event is long over. This is another form of emotional drain. It's important to learn how to let go of these mental reruns. Instead of replaying the situation over and over, you can choose to redirect your energy towards something more productive, something that uplifts you and helps you move forward. The key to protecting and managing your emotional energy is learning to set boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. You have to be mindful of how much energy you are willing to expend and where you are investing it. When you are in a situation that doesn't serve you, or when someone tries to provoke you, you have the power to say, "This isn't worth my energy. I will not allow this to affect me." With practice, you will find that the more you safeguard your emotional energy, the less likely you are to become tangled in the negative energy of others. Another powerful aspect of emotional energy is that it has the ability to attract or repel certain situations. When you are protective of your energy, when you maintain a calm, centered, and positive emotional state, you begin to attract more of the same. Like attracts like. So when you refuse to be pulled into the drama of others, when you refuse to engage in emotional toxicity, you create space for positivity and peace to enter your life. You become magnetic to situations, people, and experiences that align with your growth and well-being. Your energy is the signal you send out to the world, and it's up to you to decide what kind of energy you want to radiate. This brings us to the concept of energy exchange. When you allow someone or something to drain your emotional energy, you're essentially engaging in an energy exchange that is one-sided. But when you choose to protect your energy, when you reserve it for things that enhance your life, you create a more balanced exchange. This doesn't mean you become selfish or ignore the needs of others, but it does mean you understand the importance of self-preservation. You can give without depleting yourself. You can love and support others without sacrificing your own emotional health. In the end, emotional energy is one of the most precious resources you have. It shapes your mental state, your actions, and your interactions. By becoming more aware of where you're investing your energy, you reclaim control over your emotional world. You stop giving away your power, and you begin to cultivate a life that is filled with peace, purpose, and growth. So take stock of where your emotional energy is going. Make the conscious choice to invest it in things that nurture you, uplift you, and help you become the best version of yourself. Your peace of mind and your emotional well-being are worth every ounce of energy you protect. One of the greatest challenges we face in life is learning how to disengage from the constant cycle of drama and conflict that others try to pull us into. Life is filled with people who are driven by their egos, their insecurities, or their need to dominate others in order to feel important. They create situations designed to provoke reactions, manipulate emotions, or stir up conflict. The temptation is strong when someone attacks you or challenges you. Your natural instinct is to defend yourself, to protect your reputation, and to prove that you are right. However, the key to truly freeing yourself from the cycle of drama is to learn how to disengage completely. When you stop engaging with the drama that others try to create, you stop feeding the very forces that fuel it. This doesn't mean that you become passive or that you allow others to walk all over you. It simply means that you stop allowing yourself to be pulled into situations that waste your time, energy, and emotional resources. Drama is often a reflection of someone else's unmet needs or insecurities. When you engage with it, you become a participant in their narrative, and their issues become yours. In doing so, you lose your focus, you lose your peace, and you end up involved in a game that you can never truly win. Disengaging from drama requires a shift in mindset. It requires recognizing that you have the power to control your response to any situation. You don't need to react impulsively to every provocation. In fact, the more you respond with calmness and clarity, the more you diffuse the situation, preventing it from escalating further. When you stop engaging with drama, you refuse to allow someone else's emotional turbulence to dictate your own emotional state. You begin to see the situation for what it truly is, a reflection of the other person's unresolved issues. And you choose not to invest your energy in it. One of the most powerful ways to disengage from drama is to simply detach from the need to be right often. The root of drama is the need to prove that we are right and that others are wrong. We want our voices to be heard, our opinions to be validated, and our point of view to be acknowledged. This need for validation is one of the core drivers of ego-based conflict. When you learn to let go of the need to be right, you free yourself from the tension that fuels most dramatic exchanges. You stop worrying about proving yourself and you begin to focus on maintaining your peace and emotional equilibrium. By relinquishing the need to be right, you also begin to develop a greater sense of empathy and understanding. Instead of getting caught up in the drama and feeling compelled to argue, you step back and observe the situation from a place of neutrality. You see that the person creating drama is often struggling with their own issues, insecurities, fear, frustration, or unmet needs. When you step out of the conflict and stop feeding into the emotional fire, you create a space where both parties can calm down and reflect. In some cases, this non-engagement can even open the door for resolution, as the person may eventually come to see that their behavior was out of line. Another powerful aspect of disengaging from drama is understanding that not every situation requires your involvement. Sometimes people create drama simply because they want attention or validation. They seek to involve others in their emotional upheaval because it gives them a sense of importance or significance. But when you refuse to be a part of that cycle, you deny them the satisfaction of drawing you in. You also avoid wasting your time and energy on situations that won't help you grow or move forward. Instead, you preserve your energy for the things that truly matter: your own growth, your relationships, and the goals you are working toward. When you stop engaging with drama, you stop allowing yourself to be a pawn in other people's emotional games. You become the master of your own emotional world. This doesn't mean that you avoid conflict or difficult conversations. Instead, it means that you approach these situations from a place of emotional strength, self-awareness, and detachment. You are no longer at the mercy of others' emotional outbursts or manipulations. You decide when and where you engage, and you do so in a way that is aligned with your values and your purpose rather than reacting out of emotional impulse. Detaching from drama also creates a ripple effect in your life. As you begin to disengage from unnecessary conflict, you'll notice that your relationships become healthier and more balanced. People will sense your emotional stability, and they will begin to respect your boundaries. You will attract more peaceful, positive people into your life because you have taken the time to protect your energy and create space for more meaningful connections. As your relationships shift, you'll also find that your ability to focus on your goals and aspirations improves. With less time spent dealing with drama, you can devote more energy to what truly matters to you, whether that's advancing your career, nurturing your personal growth, or simply enjoying the peace that comes with a life free from constant emotional turmoil. In the end, disengaging from drama is one of the most empowering things you can do. By choosing not to engage with conflict, manipulation, or emotional turbulence, you take back your power and preserve your peace. You no longer let others dictate your emotional state. You become the master of your emotions, and as a result, you create a life that is peaceful, purposeful, and aligned with your true values. The decision to stop caring about the opinions of others is one of the most liberating choices you can make for your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Every day we encounter countless opportunities to seek approval, validation, and recognition from the people around us. Whether it's from family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers, the desire to be accepted is deeply ingrained in us. However, when you constantly seek approval from others, you give away your power. You allow their perceptions and judgments to shape how you see yourself. This creates an ongoing cycle of insecurity and self-doubt, where your sense of worth becomes dependent on the approval of others. The moment you choose to stop caring about how others see you, you take control of your own narrative, and in the process, free yourself from the constraints that hold you back from living authentically. At the core of this is the realization that no one knows you better than you know yourself. Others may have opinions about you, but these opinions are often based on limited knowledge, personal biases, and their own life experiences. They are reflections of how they perceive the world, not the full truth of who you are. The opinions of others can be influenced by factors that have nothing to do with you, such as their own insecurities, fears, or unresolved issues. When you base your self-worth on these fluctuating and often inaccurate perceptions, you are allowing external forces to dictate your emotional state and self-esteem. By choosing to stop caring about the opinions of others, you begin to step into your own power and embrace the truth that your worth is inherent, not conditional upon anyone's approval. One of the most transformative aspects of this shift is that it allows you to live more authentically. When you stop caring about how others see you, you stop trying to fit into the molds that society, family, or your peer group have created for you. You stop conforming to expectations that don't align with your true self. Instead, you start living in alignment with your own values, desires, and purpose. You make decisions based on what feels right to you, not based on what will please others or earn their approval. This authenticity is a source of tremendous strength because it allows you to act from a place of confidence, knowing that you are being true to yourself. Of course, this does not mean that you become indifferent or careless about the feelings of others. It simply means that you stop allowing the opinions of others to control your actions and decisions. You can still be compassionate, kind, and considerate toward others, but you no longer seek their validation to feel worthy or capable. You recognize that their opinions, while valuable in some contexts, do not define who you are or your potential. You are no longer seeking permission to live your life on your terms. Another powerful consequence of letting go of the need for approval is that you stop engaging in comparison. One of the most destructive habits we can develop is the constant comparison of ourselves to others. In today's world of social media and constant exposure to other people's lives, it's easy to fall into the trap of measuring our own worth against the success, appearance, or achievements of others. When you stop caring about others' opinions, you release yourself from the prison of comparison. You stop measuring your success, happiness, or value by external standards. Instead, you begin to measure your life against your own goals, values, and desires. This shift allows you to experience greater peace because you are no longer constantly chasing someone else's version of success. You realize that your path is unique to you, and there is no need to compare your journey to anyone else's. Letting go of the need for external validation also frees you from the burden of judgment. When you constantly care about what others think of you, you become paralyzed by fear of criticism or rejection. You start second-guessing your decisions, hesitating to take risks, or holding back from fully expressing yourself because you're worried about how others will perceive you. But when you stop caring about their opinions, you release that fear. You become more willing to take risks, to step into the unknown, and to pursue your passions with vigor. You stop letting fear of judgment hold you back from achieving your potential. In practice, this means that you start to embrace your individuality and your unique perspective. You stop dimming your light to make others feel comfortable, and instead you allow yourself to shine. You embrace the fact that not everyone will like you, and that's perfectly okay. You understand that true fulfillment comes not from seeking approval, but from living in accordance with your own truth. This process is empowering because it allows you to take full ownership of your life and your choices. It frees you from the emotional labor of trying to please everyone around you, and it enables you to focus on what truly matters to you. Letting go of the need for approval is also incredibly freeing because it opens the door to deeper self-love. When you stop caring about others' opinions, you begin to develop a deep appreciation for who you are. You recognize that your worth is not tied to anyone else's judgment, and you become more comfortable in your own skin. This inner confidence radiates outward, and as you grow more self-assured, you attract people who appreciate you for who you truly are. You no longer need to perform or prove yourself to anyone. You simply show up as your authentic self. And that is enough. Ultimately, when you stop caring about the opinions of others, you step into a life of true freedom. You release the chains of external validation and create a life that is driven by your own values, desires, and vision. You embrace your individuality, take risks, and pursue your passions without fear of judgment. In doing so, you unlock the potential for greater happiness, fulfillment, and success because you are finally living life on your own terms. The journey of personal empowerment begins when you realize the incredible freedom that comes from stopping the constant need for validation and approval from others. When you stop caring about how others perceive you, you stop giving away your power. You no longer allow the ego-driven judgments, opinions, or reactions of others to dictate your emotional state or sense of self-worth. Instead, you become the master of your own narrative, directing your emotional energy toward what truly matters: your growth, your peace, and your vision for your life. When you disengage from the drama and toxic dynamics that others may try to pull you into, you protect your emotional energy, fostering a sense of calm and clarity. You stop engaging in the cycle of comparison, criticism, and judgment that keeps you stuck in the past or constantly striving for something that is never truly fulfilling. You embrace your authentic self, accepting both your strengths and your flaws with confidence and compassion. You let go of the need to prove yourself to others, and in doing so, you open the door to a deeper level of self-love and self-acceptance. This journey is not easy, and it requires a shift in mindset and intentional practice, but the rewards are immeasurable. The more you stop caring about others' opinions and stop seeking approval, the more you step into the full power of your own potential. You will attract the right people, the right opportunities, and a life that aligns with your true purpose. So I encourage you today to start investing your emotional energy in what matters most: your personal growth, your peace of mind, and living a life that reflects who you truly are. When you stop caring about the things that don't serve you, you unlock the power to live freely, confidently, and authentically, unburdened by the judgments of others and unshackled from the limiting beliefs that have held you back for far too long.